Number 8. 93 times. On October 31st, 2020, 25-year-old Alexander Yoichi Duberik traveled from San Diego to Plainview, Texas, where he stabbed his boyfriend, 30-year-old Chad Luera, 93 times. The perpetrator's actions prior to the incident all but guaranteed that the murder was premeditated. Prior to heading to his boyfriend's residence, he purchased a Toyota Camry, presumably to have a getaway vehicle after the deed was done. He then headed to Walmart, where he purchased a variety of murder weapons, including a knife and a hatchet. Alexander also bought items to help him cover up the murder, such as a shovel, a fresh set of clothes, a lamp, and a gas can. Additionally, he got his hands on hygiene and first aid supplies in case he needed to patch himself up after brutalizing his lover. The sheer number of stab wounds he inflicted upon his victim suggests that Alexander was in an incredibly unstable state of mind. The amount of physical exertion required to pierce the human body 93 times is unimaginable, and the perpetrator himself may have sustained heavy injuries in the process. By the end, his victim's body was left utterly mutilated, and Alexander disposed of the corpse before fleeing to Houston. However, he had the presence of mind to sell the getaway vehicle at an auction, hoping this would help him cover his tracks. This ended up being a fatal flaw that led to his downfall. Police officials ended up finding a large quantity of blood in the vehicle's back seat, where the perpetrator had stored the corpse before disposing of it. Despite this, Alexander was able to evade capture for 5 months. He was only apprehended after surrendering to authorities willingly on March 18, 2021, perhaps because his guilty conscience had finally caught up with him. He apparently had a tattoo of his lover's name on his finger, suggesting he was deeply obsessed with him, and potentially explaining why he kept stabbing Chad long after he was dead. Due to the unimaginable level of violence, Alexander will spend the rest of his life in a maximum security prison. Number 7. Date gone wrong. On June 10, 2016, 32-year-old Raymond McLeod murdered his girlfriend, 30-year-old Crystal Mitchell, a mother of 2, in a guest room near a San Diego beach. A successful property manager from Phoenix, Mitchell seemed to have everything going for her. All she lacked was the right man, and when she met McLeod, she felt she had found her ideal partner. He also had a child of his own, and the two single parents quickly formed a bond. However, the couple shared a turbulent relationship over the next 3 weeks. Though he was quite protective of his new girlfriend, McLeod had violent tendencies, and they started to build up during a surprise trip to San Diego. According to reports, the couple visited a bar on the night prior to the incident, where the perpetrator was seen striking the victim across the face. McLeod, a bodybuilder and former recruiter for the Marine Corps, was several times her size, but he never hesitated to use his physical violence during his fits of rage. Surveillance footage taken at 1:22 a.m. that night revealed that the violence did not end at the bar. As the couple returned to their guest room, the perpetrator was seen grabbing the victim's throat and flinging her onto the elevator. This was the last time Mitchell was seen alive. The next morning, after the killer had left the room, one of Mitchell's friends decided to check up on her. She found her friend naked, covered with blood and with deep indentations on her throat, indicating she had been strangled. Emergency services were unable to revive her, and she was pronounced dead on the spot, while her killer was nowhere to be found. Investigators revealed that he purchased a car and made his escape, eventually ending up in El Salvador, where he began to work as an English teacher under the fake name Jack. The killer could have easily escaped justice had it not been for the heroics of Mitchell's mother, Josephine Wenzel, who had previously worked as a detective. She was able to gather evidence and piece together McLeod's location, and on August 30th, 2022, 6 years after the incident, U.S. Marshals announced that they had finally apprehended the killer in El Salvador. He pleaded not guilty, but his blatant attempt to evade arrest and the casual way he left his victim's mangled corpse behind gave the prosecutors a strong case. As of September 2022, McLeod's charge was complete, and he was being held in custody without bail. In the likely event he is convicted, McLeod faces a sentence of 25 years to life. Regardless, Mitchell's two children, now aged 11 and 12, will have to grow up without their mother. Number 6. The Stepdaughters' Revenge. On New Year's Eve 2020, 39-year-old interior designer Jade Janks gave her stepfather, 64-year-old Thomas Merriman, a lethal dose of painkillers and sleeping pills before suffocating him to finish the job. It all began on December 23rd, while Merriman was admitted in a medical care facility. Janks was trying to prepare for her stepfather's return by cleaning out his home, but when she inadvertently opened up his computer, she found something absolutely horrific. Her stepfather had kept a stash of hundreds of her nude photos in a secret folder, which sent her into a tailspin. In a frantic state of mind, she texted her friend Adam Sipolyak, who told her he could help her get rid of him for good. When she picked Merriman up from the care facility, she gave him a toxic combination of drugs. She then texted Adam again, telling him her stepfather was now unconscious and that he should come over and help her finish the job. When Adam did not reply, she started to panic, particularly when her father started to awaken. The drugs were not enough to knock him out and cause permanent organ damage, but Merriman's body was still resilient enough to survive. Not knowing what else to do, Janks decided to kill her stepfather by suffocating him. Authorities say she either used a pillowcase or a shopping bag to cut off his air supply, and she held his body down as it spasmed violently due to the lack of oxygen. Once the deed was done, she texted her friend one last time, asking him to come help her take his body to the bed. She wanted to make it seem like an overdose, but her friend had apparently had a change of heart, since he immediately called the police to tell them what happened. In December 2022, Janks was convicted of murder in the first degree, and on March 6, 2023, she was given a prison sentence of 25 years to life. Regardless of her stepfather's twisted actions, the judge felt that she should be punished to the fullest extent of the law. Do you think Janks was sentenced fairly? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Number 5. The Yacht Thief's Joyride. At 9:30 a.m. on March 10, 2022, 38-year-old Joel Praneem Siem from San Diego went on a rampage after stealing a 60-foot yacht, destroying dozens of boats near Newport Beach Harbor. The perpetrator stole the yacht while it was receiving routine maintenance, seizing the opportunity when the repair technician stepped off for a break. Putting the pedal to the metal, Siem ran straight through several sailboats in his path, leaving many of them at the bottom of the bay. A local woman named Deborah Dolly was one of the first boats he crashed into, and she was reportedly left with severe head trauma. According to witness testimonies, Siem might have been in a drug-fueled frenzy, behaving as though he did not care whether he lived or died. The violent joyride ended when he slammed the yacht into a wall near Lido Island Bridge, and he was fished out of the water by harbor police. While he was being booked, he claimed to be the CEO of a local company, though it's likely that this was just another delusion. Siem was taken to Orange County Jail, where his bail was set at $50,000. He faces 8 counts of vandalism, along with grand theft and possession of a stolen boat. As of July 1st, 2022, Siem is currently being pursued by authorities for failing to show up for a pre-trial hearing. Given the widespread damage he caused, even the most lenient sentence will keep him locked up for years to come. Number 4. Buried alive. On February 24, 2021, 23-year-old Jose Luis Mares tried to drown his wife in the ocean before attempting to bury her alive on Coronado Beach. His victim, whose name has not been released to the public, barely escaped the vicious attack. She managed to make a call to 911 at approximately 9 p.m., and police officials found her severely injured on the sidewalk along Ocean Boulevard. Mares was reportedly on probation for previous crimes, including carjacking and burglary. However, his history of violence still does not explain his bizarre attempts to kill his wife in broad daylight. What was meant to be a casual day at the beach quickly took a dark turn when the perpetrator began kicking his wife. An argument had been brewing, and the attacker eventually gave in to his dangerous impulses. After striking his wife several times, Mares reportedly tried to throw her into the ocean. When his first murder attempt failed, he noticed that a group of children had dug a deep hole in the sand. As his wife kicked and screamed, he flung her into the hole and started piling sand on top of her. The beach was mostly empty at the time, and there was nothing to stop Mares from completing his heinous crime. However, the would-be killer had a sudden change of heart. Based on the victim's testimony, he suddenly stopped trying to bury her and ran away. Though she had suffered significant bodily trauma and was disorientated from being half buried alive, she was able to drag herself out of the pit and head for safety. When the police found her barely clinging to life, she was immediately transported to a San Diego hospital where her condition eventually stabilized. The perpetrator tried to evade capture, sneaking into the backyard of a nearby home on Alameda Boulevard, but his half-hearted escape attempt made it all too easy for authorities to apprehend him. Mares is facing a broad range of charges, including attempted murder, domestic violence, and assault. He pleaded not guilty to all the charges and was held in custody in San Diego jail pending his indictment on March 5th, with his bail being set at $1 million. No further information has been released on his case as of 2023, suggesting it is still pending. His sentence will potentially be much more severe since he is also guilty of violating his parole. Though his wife survived, the trauma of the sudden attack by her own husband will likely take her years to recover from. Number 3. Dismembered in a dumpster. On May 12, 2021, 68-year-old Jack Dennis Potter was finally arrested for the brutal killing and dismembering of his wife, 54-year-old Lori Potter, 18 years after the act. Nearly 2 decades prior, on October 5, 2003, a sanitation worker found 2 severed human legs in a dumpster. Despite their best efforts, authorities were unable to discern the identity of the victim, let alone the perpetrator of this heinous crime. The victim was classified as a Jane Doe, and it was not until June 2020 that the case was reopened. Thanks to recently developed genetic technology, police officials learned that the dismembered limbs belonged to Lori Potter by matching her DNA to a distant relative. When they contacted her son, the pieces started to come together. Apparently, Lori had gone missing at the exact time the grisly remains were discovered, yet her husband never filed a police report. The fugitive task force was dispatched, and they quickly found conclusive evidence that Jack had not only murdered his wife, but also butchered her corpse and scattered the pieces to make sure his crime was never discovered. Authorities announced his arrest on May 14th, 2 days after he was apprehended and transported to San Diego Central Jail. Given how long ago the crime was committed, there was no way to discern a motive for Jack's brutality. He entered a plea of not guilty, hoping his age would grant him some leniency. Even so, the substantial evidence against him, coupled with the unimaginable way he disposed of his victim's corpse, guarantees he will serve hard time. Number 2. The 5-month Rampage. Starting from February 8, 2016, 38-year-old John David Guerrero began a 5-month-long spree of violence that left 4 people dead and 9 others severely injured. His crimes were so brutal that they were difficult to describe, with the killer bludgeoning several of his victims, impaling some of them with railroad spikes, and even burning a few of them alive. As for the motive, authorities have been unable to discern why the longtime resident of San Diego would commit such a variety of vicious acts. However, according to one of the few surviving victims of his first attacks, Guerrero simply said he was trying to kill him because he is a bum. 3 of the other people he murdered were homeless, and it's possible that the killer felt they deserved to die. It's quite clear that the perpetrator has a superiority complex, and he might have even thought he was cleaning up the streets of San Diego. This, coupled with the obvious pleasure he took in his violence, made him one of the most dangerous people in the city during the time. At 4:30 a.m. on July 15th, Guerrero attacked his final victim, 58-year-old Michael Papadelis, leaving him blind in one eye. He was arrested hours later when police officials found him casually riding a bicycle with a bloodied mallet and 3 railroad spikes in his backpack. The killer eventually pleaded guilty to 15 felonies, and he was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, one for each murder, with an additional 143 years tacked on for the life-changing injuries he caused. Number 1. The world's worst son. On September 28, 2022, 51-year-old Pacal Carlos repeatedly drove a knife into his 74-year-old mother's neck. At approximately 9 a.m., police deputies arrived on the scene to find the elderly victim on the brink of death. The knife had done considerable damage, but the perpetrator's violent frenzy prevented him from hitting any major arteries. Even so, the victim's age meant that she would have certainly died of her wounds, and she only recovered after an extensive period of intensive care. As for the culprit, he managed to escape the scene before authorities arrived. He remained on the run for several weeks while his mother fought to survive, until he was finally apprehended in San Diego on November 27th. He was charged with attempted murder and detained at Coys Bird Detention Center to await his trial, which was scheduled to begin on the 8th of December 2022. No new information has been released about his sentencing, and his case is currently making its way through the legal system. Due to the sudden and inexplicable nature of his crimes, his bail was set at $1 million. Though his mother's condition later stabilized, the ravaged muscle tissue in her neck will never fully heal, and she will be forced to spend her final years entirely dependent on others for survival. Which of these wild San Diego crimes shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Bad Badger.